Hello, everyone. Welcome to Full Press Hockey Weekly here on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Full Press Coverage. And I'm waiting for my partner in crime, Chris, to be on. But we all know how that works because every time that video goes up, he gets kicked off. But you can see my smiling face right now, the voice of Full Press Hockey, as my buddy CC Hockley said on the Full Press NHL podcast. Check that out, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Similar to this show, every Tuesday night we're here doing the thing, except for next week we'll have draft coverage, and we'll try to do some mock drafts this week as well. But this is Full Press Hockey Weekly. I'm your host, Jim Berenger. There he is. There's Chris. He's back. How you doing, buddy?
It's like it just never fails. It's like after the beginning of every video part that clips through, it's like stream connect, stream disconnect, stream disconnect, and then finally it's just like, you know what, refresh. Okay, keep refreshing, and eventually I will catch up to the right screen and end up right here.
And here you are, and you're back and better than ever, like we are this week. We just want to give a shout out to Mike Straw, our normal host and producer. It's got some family business to take care of tonight, so hope all the best with that. We're here taking his place, riding the ship, takeover here. Again, you can find this show along with everything on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts as well. We have a Stanley Cup champion crown, and it's a new one. As Chris Cuthbert said back in 1993, there'll be a new Stanley Cup champion. And we have a new Stanley Cup champion. The dynasty was denied. The legacy starts. The Colorado Avalanche are 2022 Stanley Cup champions.
And for those in the betting community, wire-to-wire champions, which is rare. Usually, at some point a team falters, their odds go below another. Colorado's never really did. They were co-favorites a couple times with a team or two, during this, but pretty much wire to wire, their betting odds were the favorite, and the favorite actually delivered for once.
Yeah,
which was kind of nice.
Yeah, they did, and they delivered in 6 games. I believe that was like the betting line going into the Stanley Cup final. Colorado in 6. That pretty much saw across all the big boards. Everybody picked Colorado in 6. I think that was the line everybody was going with. So, I mean, look, they got it done. They weathered the storm from the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think the Lightning left it all out on the ice in Game 5. And, they had the 1-0 lead. But, again, sitting back on leads against a team like Colorado, you just can't do it. I mean, they just continuously come in waves. And Nathan MacKinnon was on a mission in Game 6. And, of course, he gets 2 points. And he gets the assist on the game-winning goal.
How timely. I mean, look, at one point during Game 6, MacKinnon was 1 for 30 for the series. Let that sink in. That's 3.3%. That's not good, for all those scoring chances. And of course, there's the whispers. He wasn't injured. He just had no luck whatsoever. And in typical Nathan MacKinnon fashion, and we said this even from his rookie year when he started out a little bit, he started out with a little slow start. It's going to bounce back. And sure enough, he basically had 2 shifts where he took over, Jim, and that was it. I mean, that's all they needed.
That's it. They did. They locked down defensively. They did what Tampa did in Game 5. Is they pretty much locked it down. They went back to Game 2. What worked? Keep Tampa to the outside. Protect Darcy Kemper. Yep. And they held Tampa Bay to 1 shot in the third period for 14 minutes and 25 seconds.
Yeah.
I mean, that is unbelievable.
Yeah, you think about it, no shots over the first 950, 1 shot over the first 14 and change. And really, other than those couple meaningless shots late, I mean, Tampa really didn't. They were registered as having a high danger scoring chance. I'm still trying to figure out where in the Zapruder film that occurred. But look, Colorado clamped down. They basically said, "Hey, you know what? Healthy, not healthy. We're the better team. That's it." They shut everything down. They had the better chances, which was kind of funny, on the road. And I would almost argue they played better the last 2 games in Tampa than they did in the last couple games in Colorado, weirdly enough.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
There was no yips. There was no case of the yips in that third period. They made sure that Darcy Cumper couldn't screw up even if he wanted to. I mean, for all the talk of, they won it in spite of such and such, that was a complete effort. That was a complete offensive and defensive effort. Look, we saw today with all the dreaded, as I like to call it, the dreaded injury exit day with Tampa Bay. By the way, if you're looking for Braden Point's quadriceps, it's the pulled pork in the back aisle of your ShopRite or supermarket. I mean, wow. I still remember the Tyler Seguin injury from 2 years ago, where like his labrum was the muscle was detached from. Yeah, I mean, if you haven't ate yet and you're listening to this, ladies and gentlemen, and you have a queasy stomach, just turn from the screen. But that's the level of the kind of injuries that Tampa had. I mean, when John Cooper said, yeah, you might see these guys at the start of the regular season, but some of them, he's not kidding. Braden Point's a little bit luckier because that injury was suffered previously and he was trying to come back from it. And it just, like we said, even, he's not pushing off at all.
No, he wasn't pushing off at all. He had one assist. He gave it a go. He actually didn't look terrible in game one, but game two, it wore down real quick. And once I knew he wasn't announced for game three, I'm like, we've seen the last of Braden Point. He's not coming back. Like, that was it. I know other people would, were, all the time, no point in warm-ups. Yeah, exactly, Elliot. There is no point to warm-ups. But give Colorado credit, complete defensive effort. I mean, as Kyle said in the comments,
it's a great question.
One road loss.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, look, 16-4, 9-1 on the road. And I joke about this. You think how many times they beat the puck line on the road?
I'm thinking about that. 9-1. Does that tie?
New Jersey had 10.
10-1 on the road, right?
They were 10-1 on the road in I believe 95.
Yeah, 95. They were 10-5 on the 10-1 on the road. Yeah,
that's one of the.
They went wire to wire on the road with to win the Stanley Cup. So
that's one of the crazier marks you'll ever see.
I think they scored 9 times in the first 9 playoff games too, something like that. I think it was ridiculous. Some ridiculous stat that I don't think has ever been broken.
There are numbers from that series that if you transpose them to even today would translate in a very eerie way for people. They probably wouldn't understand, like, how is that possible? And then you watch the last 2 games of this series, or at least 2 of the last 3 in particular, where Colorado, and I've said this, Colorado's best defense by far and away was their offense in this series. They were flat out keep the puck away from Tampa. I mean, that like we said, the first half of that entire third period was like a game of keep away.
It really was. Once they got the 2-1 lead, they were like, okay, we're going to do what Tampa did to us in game 5. We're just going to keep everything outside. We're going to keep it in their zone. We're going to forecheck hard. And they really locked down the middle of the ice. I mean, they locked down the neutral zone like I've never seen Colorado lock down a neutral zone before. And you want to say, everybody says, again, neutral zone trap, boring, this and that. Banners people, I mean, it just wins championships. And Colorado very comfortable on the road, 16-4, 9-1 on the road. Every series they closed out was on the road.
Mm-hmm.
So impressive. I mean, Arturi Lehkonen now 2 series clinching goals in the playoffs, ties Joe Sakic and Peter Forsberg for doing that. I mean, Cale Makar, Conn Smythe Trophy, probably best defenseman in the league right now going. He's going to etch his name in history with other guys like Scott Niedermayer, Bobby Orr, all that stuff. But he got Conn Smythe, a Norris, and a Stanley Cup in the same year. Only 2 other guys have won the Norris and the Conn Smythe in the same year. It's Bobby Orr and it's Nicholas Lindstrom. So that's pretty good company. But Colorado's so good. They said the nerves were there in game 5. You could see it. But the fact that Tampa, again, how often and how much can you play the same style and try to win games 1-0 when you could clearly see these guys were not the same. Kucherov hurt, Chernak, McDonough, Sorelli. The list goes on of the injuries. Nick Paul. I mean, they just couldn't play their system the way they wanted to. If this team was healthy and they weren't dealing with these injuries, maybe they're able to survive winning 1-0 or 2-1, stuff like that.
I think the games aren't 1-0 and 2-1 at that point, because they had the ability to play a more dynamic style of offense. You could see it in the first game and the third game. It just wasn't in the. They were worn down. They got worn down by a faster, younger team. And if you look even, and you hate to do this because it does kind of lead into a whole bunch of stereotypes. Colorado, younger. Tampa's average age, I think, is 29.6 going into this series, and I think Colorado's is was a shade over 27. But also, you consider that Colorado probably a good 7-8 pounds lighter per man.
Yeah, easily.
I mean, that was the rough estimate from the guys at Sports Interaction, which I've been ribbing forever, because I keep campaigning for the pinata picks for hockey.
Yeah,
if it's anything like golf and some of the other sports, I know somebody that hit the golf one last week.
So that's a good pick. They did a good job then.
They did 120-1 and hit, but all kidding aside, so you think about that. So say 7-8 pounds lighter, 2.5 3 years younger per man, healthier team. I mean,
outside of like a couple of guys,
right? And the math is there. Look, Tampa played a certain way. They knew they had to play a certain style. They didn't have a choice in the matter. Would it have been different if they were able to be a little bit more dynamic? Maybe. But to be honest, I don't think it doesn't make enough of a difference in the series. I still think Colorado ultimately wears them down, because if you basically said, all right, we did the video game version of this, say both teams are healthy, Colorado's the better team.
I would agree with that. I think Colorado definitely the better team. You could clearly see in 4, 5, and 6, they just kept coming late in games. Even in Game 5, they had chances to tie the game. Vasilevsky was good, but Tampa was able to get the puck out finally. And the difference.
How good was Vasilevsky in the last few games of this series? And it's
very good.
And it's going to be one of those things that kind of goes by the wayside, because obviously Tampa did not win. But wow, I mean, just all right, for perspective. Expected goals allowed for Tampa was nearly 3. Nearly 3. And it got worse each period for Tampa, unfortunately, as Colorado built up steam. That's just at even strength.
Yeah, we know the power play numbers were. I mean,
the power play numbers weren't pretty and could have been much worse. So this is one of those things where it's like, okay, now, was there a team that could have put up a better fight than Tampa Bay ultimately?
No.
Maybe, if they were healthy. If a certain elbowing person didn't strike a certain star of a team from Pennsylvania.
Also, you think the Penguins would have given them a run for their money?
I think it would have been interesting. It would have been all right. Storyline thrown in, obviously. Because
Nathan McKinnon versus Crosby. Yeah, exactly.
Would have been something. It would have been fun. And then you figure the old guard versus the new guard, Letang versus Makar, would have been a lot of fun. And
I just don't know if the Penguins would have been able to match speed with Colorado.
Now here's the dynamic where maybe Pittsburgh runs into trouble. That first line doesn't have the speed that Colorado's top line and top pairing has. Where would you match them up? And that's where the problem would be, say, on the road for Pittsburgh. So if Colorado has last line change, that's speed disadvantage is where. But I'll tell you right now, there's just enough that with Pittsburgh when healthy, that they could have at least competed with them. It would have been fun. Look, I bet you the same result happens. I bet you it would probably went like 6 games and Colorado would have
Yeah,
won
I think
anyway.
Colorado still would have won. But I mean, you mentioned it before. I mean, the biggest difference in this series is the power play. I mean, Tampa 2 power play goals. I think Colorado had 7 or 8 power play goals in the series. I
And
mean, think
it's not
about it.
just the amount. Think
Yeah,
think of all the chances that it created even after a power play ended.
exactly. I mean,
They built
chances.
momentum better than any team
They do.
in
And
this
I mean,
playoff.
look, but and if you think if Tampa was able to score maybe 1 or 2 or win a power play battle in games 1 and 4, maybe this is a different series. Maybe Tampa's winning 3 straight cups. But they didn't, and they
Nope.
let Colorado dictate play from the third period on in game 4 through the overtime. It was all Colorado, and Nazem Kadri scores the game winner. Guy comes back, broken thumb, the whole 9 yards. Burakovsky plays with a broken foot. He didn't then gets hurt with the hand. You should have seen Etrushkin's foot. His foot was looking ugly.
Don't look at that video, kids.
But I mean, Colorado, top to bottom, just played as a team. You know, Jack Johnson, Eric Johnson, Josh Manson, Nico Sturm, Andrew Cogliano, Darren Helms, the guys they brought in fit the mold, and this team, as I've said other places, this team, failure was not an option for this team. They wanted to win. They were motivated by past playoff performances, their losses, and they were going to win the Stanley Cup, regardless of what people thought. And they did it, and they won it on the road. And kudos to them for getting it done because they beat a worthy champion. They beat the probably the team that is going to go down as one of the best salary cap era teams ever, and they said they're not done. Even the general manager says they're not done with the nucleus. They're looking to keep everybody again. Figures what else is new with Tampa. They always find a way.
They always find a way.
Colorado will try to find that way too. Joe Sakic's going to have to work his magic now to keep guys instead of bringing in guys. So, but I think Colorado.
Most of their core is pretty solid for the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, but
you're gonna lose somebody from that quote unquote second line, or at least 1 to 2/3 of that second line. Kadri's probably gonna go. I think Kumper ultimately is going to go the way of the dodo. Where I couldn't tell you. Hope
right.
Not New Jersey. Please no. But all joking aside, so you figured Kadri, Kumper, Nichushkin, they're gonna. I think
they're gonna keep
they
him.
find a way. I mean,
they
you
find a
you
way
have
to
to
keep
find
him.
a way to keep him.
They'll keep Lehkonen too. He's an RFA anyway, so
yeah, they can put a nice qualifying. How crazy is Lehkonen? I gotta check this to make sure, but I know he had 4 game-winning goals in the playoffs.
Well, he had back-to-back series clinching goals.
He had back-to-back series clinching, but did he have just
2.
one? I think he had 1 in each round too, which is
I think he
kind
probably
of crazy.
did.
Yeah, that's a rare accomplishment. Now, obviously, you have to go back into the historical media NHL archives for that one. It might be a little bit tough, but it's something we're going to research with some of the numbers that came out of this series, going forward, because we have that in between period, Jim, where it's like we're now in the in between the off season, the draft, the free agencies in a couple weeks. Draft is next week. I mean, there's a little bit of time in a window that we can have some fun with this, and dig into the numbers.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, just think about it though. Tampa 3 straight finals, something we haven't seen since the '80s. They're changing the guard potentially. Tampa saying they want to come back and do it again. And Colorado, wins the Stanley Cup, gets their first since 2001, and what Joe Sakic did, what Bednar did, the patience that they had to keep this team going. Bednar probably could have been fired after one of those second round losses, but they kept with the team. Joe Sakic, lets Philip Grubauer walk, brings in Darcy Kemper. Kemper played good. I don't know if he was great, but he was good when they needed him to be. He settled down after the first Stamkos goal. And you think about Tampa, Stamkos, even though they didn't win the Stanley Cup, this was his best year statistically in a long time for him. And he's only going to get better. And that's why you think this Lightning team is probably not going to go anywhere when this core's been the 6 of 8 Eastern Conference Finals, 4 finals. I mean,
That's just nuts.
It's just ridiculous what this team continues to do. And, they played a lot of hockey over a short period of time. And you just wonder if maybe they're just going to run out of gas eventually.
As crazy as it sounds, they might not, because quite a few of those players weren't completely healthy. Stamkos missed a couple of those. Kucherov was out here and there. Point obviously missed a significant part of the playoffs. So the wear and tear that they might have felt normally isn't quite the same. Now Stamkos is an odd sort of player in the sense that he may be kind of like an Ovechkin, where he has that prime that doesn't quite end completely. It kind of dips a little and then it comes back. I mean, look, Alexander Ovechkin scoring goals in soccer, Russian soccer league. I mean, and playing the same way as he does.
Off a one-timer, another one-timer.
One time, right in his office too.
If he was in the office.
He was in the office, but think about this for a second. Stamkos could be that type of player, not necessarily because of health, and yet because of it, for completely different reasons. How Ovechkin stayed preserved so long. In this case, it may just be because Stamkos, played not as much and didn't have as much wear and tear as some of the other Tampa Bay players. He may be able to play well into his mid-30s like this with ease, and I wouldn't be surprised if he does. I mean, he looked better and better as the season went on this year.
Well, I mean, look at it. I mean, in the Stanley Cup final, he was the only guy pretty much that had wheels out there besides Palat, because Kucherov was hurt, other guys just didn't have the speed. But Stamkos was still motoring on, trying to will his team to for that tying goal, maybe another Stanley Cup. And you know what? This team will probably be different, but coaching staff wise, probably maybe some player personnel out as well. But you can't count out Tampa Bay just yet, because they're I mean, look, how many times have we said Boston might be done, Washington might be done, Pittsburgh might be done, and they're still all there. So until the window's officially closed, this team is still going to motor on. And same with Colorado. I think Colorado's in the position Tampa was in when they won their first Stanley Cup. Yeah, they had their that period where they lost a little bit. But now I think they're getting in that window where they probably can make a run to win multiple championships as well. So, I mean, both teams, would we be surprised if we had the same final next year? No, but I know fans would definitely want a different one.
Yeah, look, I remember talking to a couple of the Islanders guys, maybe like 5-6 years ago, what happened with them come the 85-86 season. They're like, Tampa is a little bit different as far as a dynamic. A lot of these Islanders players are starting to age. Bossy's back was starting to really bother him. Trottier was starting to, feel the injuries. Billy Smith wasn't quite the same player. Like they said, they back then, being in shape wasn't quite the priority as it is now. And a lot of these guys, they broke down quicker. Tampa is not in that boat just yet, and they can reload at least enough where they can make another run or two. I mean, it's hard to count a team out like them because they find a way, and that has to tick off teams. It really does. I mean, it has to be like a level. Look, Toronto will say, "Hey, we let them off the hook." The Rangers will say, "Hey, we let them off the hook." Even Florida will be like, "Hey, we should have won a couple games." But you didn't.
But you didn't. Exactly.
You did not finish. And if you let a team hang around long enough, like Tampa, and Colorado almost was guilty of the same thing. I mean, look, one bounce in Game 6, and we might have a Game 7. I mean, obviously it didn't happen.
No.
But they stayed close enough. And look, I saw the look of Joe Sakic after Game 6, and he looked more relieved that it was over finally than anything else. Guys like that get it.
It's a winning mentality. It's all about winning. Like, it's that culture, it's the mentality. it's, Tim Grover said it, it's about, that culture that you have in your brain, that mentality. You don't want to give it up. You breathe it all the time. You'll do whatever it takes to win. The sacrifices made off the ice, on the ice, whatever it will. And Tampa was so close to doing it again. And and they're primed to still do it. I mean, think about it. I mean, this team could potentially it could be 7 of 9 years in a conference final. Think about the years they didn't close. I mean, it's just crazy. Like against Washington, against Pittsburgh, the year they didn't make it was 17, and they only missed by a couple of points. And Stamkos, I think, was out of lineup. That was the year Kucherov was carrying everybody.
That was the 17 game. That was the 17 game season where he was out for most of the year.
Yeah,
that's why I said Stamkos, probably is more. This was the first time in 3 years he played a full season. So, I mean, this bodes well for the off season for them. They're in pretty good, reasonable shape. They don't have to add much, but there's a lot of teams out there that are always lurking because, well, darn it, I love this about numbers and odds. The 2022-23 odds come out days before the season is even over. So you're already looking to next year while this year is still going. It's the most hysterically fun thing in sports, from a betting standpoint and from a number standpoint, because you're already going into next year with, it's like, well, but we're only at like game 3. And that's when the numbers came out, and I'm sitting there, it's like, ooh, what's this? And then like all of a sudden, like DraftKings leaks it out, like, oh, there it goes. I was like, there's your 22.
There it goes. There.
And it's fun. Now to be fair, this year at least, when it first came out, all of a sudden DraftKings tweets it out and then deletes the tweet because they put out I forget which teams they put out that were wrong. And they're like, wait.
That's wrong. Well, we know Colorado. We know Colorado are the odds-on favorite to win the Stanley Cup next year again.
Once again. There's some funky short numbers that you have to watch out. Don't go on certain sites, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Needless to say.
But hey, congrats again to the Colorado Avalanche winning a Stanley Cup. Well deserved, hard fought, wire to wire. Excellent series. Obviously, ratings wise, did really well. Even the cup presentation was really good as well. They did everything, and both of these teams will have a lot of players, we hope, go to the Hockey Hall of Fame, which has been a discussion point since yesterday.
It's going to heat up quick, ladies and gentlemen.
And so, without further ado, first off, congratulations to Roberto Luongo, Daniel Sedin, Henrik Sedin, Daniel Alfredsson, Rika Salamainen, I can't say the last name, and then Herb Carnegie, or the 2022, the builder, in the 2022 Hockey Hall of Fame class. However, Chris, the floor is yours, because there's a certain guy you and I both think should be in the Hockey Hall of Fame and isn't. And he won a Stanley Cup with New Jersey, went to another final with New Jersey, and it's not. Also, 26 deserves to go in. I'll talk about him in a little bit, but Alexander Mogilny.
Yeah, for those that don't know, and the problem is, I guess when the Hockey Hall of Fame committee members met, and this is the only rationale that I can give for this, that seems somewhat, I don't even know if you could call this fair. You were inducting the Sedin twins as a duo no matter what. So that was 2 slots right there. Do I think you need to open up at least one more slot for an influential lady? Absolutely. I mean, in the last 12 years, I think we've inducted 8 women into the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Out of 24 potential slots. That's rough. I mean, I know there's plenty of worthy candidates. I mean, even if that number was up to, say, 16, that would be an improvement.
And Chris is now gone. His connection there, but hey, this is live television, like you said. If there 16 slots, there would be well deserved for the women to get in there. The Finnish woman that came out of retirement to try to win another gold medal this year. Well deserved this year. Great career for Finland national team, playing her entire career with them. Surprised because I thought maybe a Carolina Roulette or a Jennifer Botterill was going to get in. Here he's back.
Yeah, every time this happens, I swear it's like something like there's like a video shift or something, just without fail. But like I was saying, obviously I thought Jennifer Botterill would get in.
Or I thought Carolina Roulette was going to be the one that was going to get in this year.
Her too. I mean, you had candidates. I mean, there should be no reason why you can't like yank another slot or add a slot. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's something that they have a magic. That's just the number. That's it.
Well, what was the 1 year? It was like Dino Ciccarelli and a couple other people. That was it. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, I mean, we've had years like that too, where it's like, I mean, look, and to be fair, other sports have too. Remember, baseball had the year where they had nobody.
Well, that's because it's the baseball writers.
I understand that, but I mean, if you have you need to have some kind. This isn't about quotas.
No,
because people have. There were a few people that kind of jumped on that, and that's wrong. That's just wrong. You can't do that. I can hear Mike's voice like ringing through my ears saying, "No, you can't do that." But it's true. There are worthy candidates that were out there, and obviously Mogilny tops the list. I mean, defecting from Russia the way he did, scoring 76 goals his first year.
That was the same year Solani did it too, right?
Isn't it crazy that just the numbers that people don't realize? Now, look, I get Mogilny didn't have quite the individual accolades that some other players did. But, I mean, Daniel Alfredsson's claim to fame, in my opinion, is his temper tantrum during the 07 final. Sorry. I know it's wrong, but it's true.
I mean, look, Alfie's an accomplished
and he's a very good
player.
Yeah,
a very accomplished international player. I mean, they take into so many things, but to me, if Alfredsson's going to get in, then Mogilny has to be in, and this opens up a slot for Patrick Elias because he has two Stanley Cups, 1,000 points in similar numbers to Alfredsson and the Sedins, and yeah, he may not have the individual awards, but he also has international success as well.
Right, and people have to remember, Mogilny did not have an easy ride through this, and I still remember this, Jim. He almost retired in '99. He considered it. There were definite issues with him as far as injuries and being worn down. He wasn't sure if he was going to go back to Russia. And then obviously the 99-2000 season, he got even more despondent. And then thankfully that trade was made, with New Jersey, and that seemed to give him an extra little bit of life. I mean, look, that 2001 season, Jim, was magic.
Oh,
I mean, people do not understand this. Yes, this was Mogilny's last stand, but 43 goals, 40 assists, probably could have been more. But the way that Larry Robinson and company divvied up the minutes that year was understandable, and it just worked.
Scott Gomez was great.
That was one of the most fun lines in hockey. The egg line. That was fun. I mean, you sat there and you were flat out scared of facing that line. I had fun covering that. That was, and it leads to the obvious. This is a player that averaged 1.04 points per game, and it's more than just the points. It's the story of how he came over from Russia. He lost a couple. People forget he lost basically a year and a half to 2 years, because he didn't play until his age 20 year. He easily could have played. Look, this was a player that could have played at 17 or 18 in the NHL without a problem.
Absolutely.
He had that kind of talent. I just don't quite think people understand. Although he was, and I'll say this, he was 5'12". It's okay to admit it. He wasn't quite 6 foot. It's all right, but he was a bull.
I mean,
When
he was a
it came to
monster.
lower and particularly middle body strength, there were a few players that could knock him off his game. When he was on, that was it. It was downright frightening. And you induct players that change the game.
And he changed the game.
And he changed the game. I mean, look, Russians like Pavel Bure, Mogilny, I mean, now Kucherov. These are guys that changed the way this is played. And I remember Kucherov a few times saying, if it wasn't for guys like Bure and Mogilny, I'm not in the NHL probably.
Probably not. No, and doing what he's doing. I mean, look, McGillney's so good. What he did, changing the game. What he did with Buffalo, Vancouver years, yes. The Devil years saved his career. Even what he did in Toronto at the end. I mean, he was still
Wow.
playing.
People forget this. People forget that, and I laugh at this, and nobody believes this. In his last full year, obviously, which was in Toronto, Alexander Mogilny won the Lady Byng Award of all things. How crazy is that? Not just the 79 points in 73 games, and he had 30 plus goals. But it's really goofy to think that he won the Lady Byng. He played 20 minutes a night that year.
Won the Lady Byng.
And won the Lady Byng. If you sat there and told people that, they would not believe you.
No.
They really wouldn't, because I mean, if you go through his history, even he had a couple years early in his career where he came close to winning it, and people just assumed, he isn't going to win it. By the way, that last full year, he had 9 game-winning goals, which led Toronto. So he still had it.
He still had it. Absolutely.
Even his last year when he came back to New Jersey. Remember, he came back to New Jersey for that little bit of a cameo run with Gomez.
Yeah.
And he had like 25 points in 30 games. Yeah, the last few games he didn't do anything, but there was like a point where like he was pretty close to a point a game.
Those two just had so much magic during 2000 and 2001. I mean, those guys were unbelievable. It was unbelievable what those guys did. I mean, those years with the Devils, but all the lines were just unbelievable. They were probably outside of Colorado and Dallas, probably, and Detroit. I mean, those were the top 4 teams every year. Everybody was talking about was the Devils, Dallas, Colorado, Detroit. I mean, what those teams did, it was ridiculous. And you bring it. Alfredsson probably opens the door for a guy like Elias. You have Roberto Luongo getting
even a certain Sedin twin opens the door for Elias even more, because he didn't quite have the points the other twin had.
You mean Daniel?
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, a little. I mean, look, it's a weird process sometimes with the way the committee works, and I'll be the first one to admit I don't always understand how this goes or how it should go.
And there goes Chris again. Yeah, I mean, we don't understand how the committee works. Mike Gartner makes the announcement, but Bobby Lou gets in. I mean, this guy, his stats speak for himself. He gets in. That means probably Henrik Lundqvist, when he's on the ballot next year, he'll probably get in. But we could probably maybe potentially see a guy like Elias or McGillney, or maybe a Theoren Fleury or a Turgeon or Brenda Moore get in next year as well. But I was going to say, does Luongo open the door up for like Lundqvist since he's on the ballot next year?
Lundqvist is a lock next year.
Yeah.
I mean, especially now. I mean, look. It's weird. Did Luongo deserve to get in this year? You know what? Yeah,
he did.
He sure did. I mean, look. I know people will say, "Oh, well, he came up short in 2011." That wasn't his fault.
No.
Vancouver's special teams collapsed.
Big time collapse. And from like 08, 09 through to 2012, the Sedins and the Canucks were like that was the best team in hockey, and they didn't win.
They were the team. They were like that team that sort of like a certain team in the NFL there, Jim, like Buffalo that just in the 90s that just couldn't get over the hump.
No. But I was saying, like, so with Lundqvist pretty much a lock next year. We don't know who else will get in. But do you think now maybe with the guys that are eligible, potentially we get like a Brind'Amour, we get an Elias, a McGillney finally, a Fleury, maybe a Turgeon type guys go in next year finally, different guys because of the length of eligibility now, because the next year's class really first valid. Outside of Lundqvist, I really don't see anybody that's up getting in like right away.
Yeah, next year probably would be the year for McGillney to get in. Yeah. Without a doubt. And Elias might be able to slip in too. I mean, they were saying that he was closer this year. I don't know whether to believe.
Well, nobody knows what the percentages are because
I love that because unlike, say other sports, you see percentages.
Yeah.
You never do in hockey. And if somebody does and they have some kind of like light to it without getting like, I don't know, their credentials revoked or worse, we'd love to see them.
Oh, we do. We would love to see.
I mean, look, and the reason for this is, and it's not to leak this to listeners and this and that and such. You know what it's for? Is so we learn the process because there's things we don't know. I mean, we would like to know because we're curious for one, and for two, it's like, well, okay, this person didn't get in. We'd like to know why in a way that it doesn't come off as sounding, oh, boo-hoo, wah, wah.
Right, exactly. Like
we
want to say, we want to know and say, okay, well, if McGillney if it's X amount of percentage and McGillney has this, will we get there next year? Or Elias get there next year? Or this person or that person? That's all we need to know. Like Jeremy Roenick, like or Theo Fleury, or this guy or that guy, whoever's coming up short, we just like to know. But look, congrats to everybody gets in the Hockey Hall of Fame ceremony in November, so that'll be good. Hall of Fame weekend is back. Before we get out of here, exactly, it is. Before we get out of here, NHL offseason coming up soon. The silly season is here, Chris.
Yay! Money spending season. Uh-oh. I mean, look, for people that don't know, the cap didn't really go up again like expected, but this just take hope, NHL fans. This might be if not this year, next year, the flat cap probably is done either after this year or next year. I think you see a more robust bounce at some point. When that is, I don't know. I mean, based on if the revenue numbers are accurate, Jim, basically we were approaching what, five was it?
Over $5 billion this year.
It was over $5 billion this year by rough abacus math.
Right. That was according to Gary Bettman.
Yeah, I like to see like the concrete numbers, obviously, and so would everyone.
I mean,
else,
obviously they have to pay back some debt, and escrow and everything gets factored in, and so
that's a big part.
We'll see what the official numbers are. We probably won't get that for a little bit anyway. But look, everybody plays into the off season, right? We hear that the salary cap came in so general managers don't make the same mistakes. They always make the same mistakes. They always overpay guys they shouldn't. They always regret the contract after a year. They always look to try to buy out somebody. I have no idea what that is in the comment. I really don't. But it's just interesting because like a Goudreau's out there, Nazem Kadri, Darcy Kemper, Jack Campbell, just to rattle a few off, and New Jersey's been linked to like every guy. See if they do something with that. But it's just interesting to see that, oh yeah, the salary cap's in place. Oh yeah, but we're still gonna overpay this guy or overpay that guy. And it's just it doesn't work. And that's why Tampa's been so successful.
Yeah, who are those overpays this year? Darcy Comfort probably. I still say this: Johnny Gaudreau somewhere is going to get like 10.5 or 11 million somewhere. I
Probably.
mean,
Philip Forsberg's out there too. I mean,
Forsberg's out there, and let's be honest. I said this from the beginning when Nashville was eliminated in the playoffs. If you think there isn't some kind of rift between him and Nashville, especially with management and coaching, you don't know Philip Forsberg, because it's very obvious from the negotiations and what's been reported so far that there's a disconnect that is more than just money there.
right, exactly. I mean, he definitely feels like he hasn't been treated fairly, considering that David Poile went to go get Matt Duchene. And I think without Forsberg on the team, I think Matt Duchene does not have the numbers that he had this season.
Career renaissance, anyone? Yeah.
Right. I mean, he
So
did. I mean, let's be honest.
and
Philip Forsberg's the most consistent offensive player the Nashville Predators have had.
that can't be disputed. I mean, look, we've made much issue of this here. I mean, with the tacos and the Tuesday,
And
but
the
the
8-year
bottom,
offer, apparently they
and
offered in 8 years.
they
We don't know
offered
the
an
money.
8-year. I would love to see the money on that, because I could guarantee that that's not what Forsberg is looking for from Nashville, because he wants more. Look,
He wants Yossi money. Let's be honest. He wants Yossi money.
wants Yossi money for one. For two, he wants free agent market money. He does not want a discount.
No.
And I can understand that based on the way he's been treated. Now, whether you agree with that or not in Nashville or elsewhere is a moot point,
Mm-hmm.
because of what has gone on in Nashville the past few seasons with Forsberg. And you have to consider that. You have to look at that as the amounts go in. And not just with him, but with the other free agents. I mean, look, Matthew Tkachuk is not an automatic slam dunk yet.
Yeah, but isn't he only an RFA? Wouldn't
He's
teams
only an
have to
RFA, but you would think that like an extension is somewhere on the horizon, depending on what happens with Gaudreau. And again, there's a lot of moving parts
the
involved
first domino is
this
going to
year.
have to fall before everything else falls, like we've seen it in the past. Like the first guy off the board may not always be the big guy.
I don't think it's
But
going to be a big guy. I think it's going to be kind of like a medium, like an upper middle guy that
yeah,
kind of sets the table a little bit this year.
and then it'll set the table for the guys in the middle of the ground, because those guys will get the raises that they feel that they deserve or want, and it just throws the whole market out of whack.
Now, of course, we could get a complete curveball and say, like, what if, say, a Nishishkin number comes in early,
Right.
and it's team friendly, which could very well easily happen. Now that's going to throw the market in a different direction. Nobody knows how the market is going to go. Anybody that sits there, or insider that throws out a bunch of numbers and says this is how it's probably going to go, doesn't truly know
No.
until the first domino or two falls.
When the first
But
contract comes in,
by the way, Jim, that is Portuguese Brazilian, and
yeah.
he's saying good evening.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate that.
Hey, I had a neighbor that was Portuguese, so I can kind of, once I read it a few times, I can translate, like as each line as it's going down. Very cool though. But here's the thing too, cap wise and numbers. How about this one? We talked about the Pittsburgh Penguins earlier in this show.
Mm-hmm.
Malkin's going somewhere else.
Letang,
I still believe it. I know people are holding out some hope, but every media member you talk to in Pittsburgh, it just feels like the writing's on the wall.
I think if anybody else stays, it's going to be Letang.
I think Letang gets. I think he tests the market at least.
But he pulls the Stamkos and stays.
I think so. I don't know
Yeah,
what I don't know what the number will be, because obviously 35 plus deal, so you kind of have to temper that into the number. Obviously with Malkin as well, but he's going to get money from somewhere, and I would love to. I would love. Somebody had even said Florida, but that's not going to happen. They'd have to move heaven and earth there. with their cap. It's not impossible.
No, not impossible.
But they would have to do some considerable moving. There was some talk that maybe a San Jose could, but San Jose's in a
they got their own issues to worry about.
There were a list of teams, and it's like you're going through each one. It's like these make less and less sense as you go along.
San Jose has to clear cap space if they want to bring anybody in, because B, they have bad contracts on the. They're the opposite of Toronto. Toronto is top heavy. San Jose back heavy in terms of contracts. So defensively, everybody's overpaid. And they'll try to move somebody that contract or something. You got Florida trying to move Bobrovsky out, maybe retaining salary. You got,
it's got too many years.
It's got too many years left. I mean, if you're the Devils, maybe take a flyer on Bob. Maybe. Especially if Florida is willing to eat some salary.
Again, I just don't think if he had just 2 years left on his deal, I think he gets moved.
Yeah.
But that man, it doesn't seem like it makes a difference. But I remember there was a deal on the table for Zajac, and the team that was involved balked because of that extra year.
Yeah.
And you think, well, okay, lesser amount. Devils are retaining half, which was like 2.9 something, and yet they still balked. So think about this.
Well, that's why Coleman got moved. That's why guys like Paul Murray got moved. Only 1 year left on the deal, But Coleman had a year and a half left on his deal, but it was so team friendly that it didn't matter.
It didn't matter.
Right, exactly.
There's nothing team friendly about Bobrovsky's. There's nothing.
No.
There's nothing team friendly about even a certain Toronto deal that always freaking gets rumored, and that's with Nylander's now. It's like the forever rumor.
I don't see them moving anybody. I think they're going to try to be like Colorado and just win with the core that they have and try to bring in pieces that fit.
They basically need their defense and goaltending to be on the same page at the right time.
Exactly, because their offense is there, but
their offense is there, and what we mean by that here on FPH is this: their defense doesn't just play well defensively; it creates the transition for the offense. Because too many times against Tampa Bay, even this year, you sat there and pointed out during a game, it's like there's a disconnect,
right?
And that can't happen in the playoffs. And that was one of the main reasons why they got eliminated. It wasn't goaltending, because the last couple games of that series, their goaltending was good enough. But again, it's that transitional defense to offense. It could not create at the crucial times, and you have to have that in the playoffs. I mean, you can talk about goaltending all you want, or 1 year they had this and 1 year they didn't have this. But if your defense doesn't set up your offense in some form, you're not winning.
No.
I don't care. I don't care what your talent level is. You're not going to win. And that's something that Florida found out.
Yeah, transitional goals.
Their transitional goals that were there all season completely evaporated in the playoffs. It's a different style of play in the playoffs.
And maybe they hope that Paul Maurice will be the guy that can make the transition for them. But look, it's going to be an interesting offseason. The draft is next week. Free agency to follow. Drafts. The boys will be back, doing a mock draft tomorrow. So they haven't picked the time yet, but so we'll see.
We'll find out.
We'll find out.
We are as Mongo from Blazing Saddles once said, we are pawn in Game of Life.
And we got to end on that. Great reference, great line, and thank you everybody for tuning in to Full Press Hockey Weekly here on Full Press NHL, on Facebook, Full Press Coverage on YouTube, Full Press Coverage on Twitch.tv, Twitter. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify. For Chris, I'm Jim. We'll take it easy, and we'll see you soon.